Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. I'm Liz Schell, Chair of the Planning Committee, and with me, Councillor Neal, Vice Chair, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Osanek, and Councillor Turner. And we have quite a few staff with us tonight, starting with the Clerk Thompson, Manager Vendetti, Planner Diedrichsen, Planner Wicca, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name.
Sajid Sifat.
Sajid Sifat. Thank you. You're new to the department a little while.
Yeah.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
And we have our Commissioner, Ms. Hurdle. And I think that covers our staff. And now I will read the public meeting introduction. Notice of collection. Personal information collected as a result of this public hearing and on the forms provided at the back of the room is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning, Building, and Licensing Services. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant, committee members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be opened to the public for comments and questions. Interested persons are requested to give their name and address for recording in the minutes. There is also a sign-in sheet for interested members of the public at the back of the room. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications, and unless otherwise noted, the public meeting is held to gather public opinion. Exemption to this rule is outlined in bylaw number 2006-75 to delegate various planning approvals to staff and to adopt certain procedures for the processing of planning applications subject to delegated authority. Council has authorized staff to use this discretion in determining if an application can be a combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. We do have two combined public meeting comprehensive reports this evening, 202 Splinter Court and 682 Princess Street. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to Planning, Building, and Licensing Services staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to Planning Committee. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared making a recommendation for action to this committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. This committee then makes a recommendation on the applications to City Council, and City Council has the final say on the applications from the city's perspective. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act, and anyone with an interest in the matter may file an appeal. Interested persons are advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And with that, I'd like to open our first public meeting, and this has to do with application for zoning bylaw amendment 213-219 Princess Street. And I would ask the applicants to come forward to give their presentation. Hi.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Horn-McCoy. I'm with Colburn and Campbell Architects, and I'll be going through the zoning bylaw amendment request for 213-219 Princess Street. So we're going to give a brief introduction, go over site context, the existing layout, proposed plans, heritage impact statement, and then the zoning amendments that have been requested for density, parking, and amenity space, and then questions. So this is the property. It's immediately to the south of the Capitol Theatre on the same side of the road. There's an existing commercial development on the ground floor of the property and apartments above. So in the existing layout, there are 4 one-bedroom units, 1 two-bedroom unit, 1 four-bedroom unit. And in our proposed, the ground floor remains commercial, and the upper floors are developed into 3 two-bedroom units, 3 one-bedroom units, and a 2 one-bedroom unit that is net new. At the courtyard side of the building, there are 2 older wood structures that are proposed to be demolished and new to be built within the same footprint. Sorry, I don't have a pointer. However, on the left is the existing with the dash showing the indicated demolition area, and on the right is the proposed new, and that is taken at the second level, which is why the footprint looks large. Sorry, the existing is on the second level, so it does appear larger in the adjacent plan, but it is the same footprints. This is the proposed ground floor with the new connection at the back. There is space for 4 enclosed bicycle spaces as well in that courtyard. This is the proposed second and third floor, showing if you look on the very left, there is the unit that is new with on the third floor and second floor, totally new units to the building. The plan also indicates the amenity spaces, and we'll come back to that. This is the current Princess Street elevations. 219 Princess Street is a listed property. A heritage impact statement was completed by M.W. Hall Corporation. The redevelopment at the rear of the building integrates well with the existing structures, and the overall development was noted as being as a benefit for both the exterior and the Princess Streetscape, as well as the interior improvements that will improve the condition of the building. It also will reestablish many of the heritage characteristics. So we have an older photo here of the Capitol Theater, and you can see just adjacent to it the dormer on 219 Princess. So that's what's hidden in behind the metal siding at the top there in the recent photo. We're looking at having that removed and restoring more of what was seen previously, although there were concerns with the sloped roof onto Princess Street, so we're adding a parapet, but I'll show you that. So this rendering is just done in grayscale. It's not to illustrate the colors of the proposal. However, it indicates how the dormer is re-exposed. There is a parapet built there so that we're not having snow coming down onto Princess Street, which had been a concern previously that resulted in the metal being put up. As well, the limestone would be repointed. The carriageway is maintained, and that's on 219 Princess. For the adjacent 213 to 217, the metal siding is removed, and brick veneer is proposed that is sympathetic to the limestone of 219 Princess Street. And all new windows, all new curtain wall systems for the storefronts as well. These are current conditions of the courtyard. You can see the older wood additions that are coming off. This is a section through, I'm going to just briefly go, the elevations are hard to read in the courtyard. You can see the Princess Street is to the right, and as you come back to the back side of the courtyard. So you're passing under the house shape is the carriageway section. And this is looking, this is the north elevation of that courtyard. So here's a 3D view, which I think makes it a little clearer what's going on. There's the new addition to the right with the second and third floors slightly overhung from the ground floor. The limestone masonry of the existing building is a slightly lighter gray in the view. And then there's the newer section as well behind 213 Princess. It's a single story within a small portion that's 2-story. It's the first floor plan and the proposed second floor plan, and there you can see the offset of the second floor and the proposed layouts. And the third and fourth floor. So there's a small portion of 219 Princess that has a fourth floor. It is a second level to one of the units on the third floor. So with our zoning, we're looking at amendments for density, amenity space, parking, and those are those. So for density, the current permitted is 123 dwelling units per net hectare. If we look at it as on a combined 213 to 219 Princess, we're at 165 dwelling units per hectare. So that's a minimal increase to density. There's no adverse impact anticipated, and the heights of the existing building are consistent with the existing buildings along Princess Street and within the heights of the zoning bylaw. For parking and bicycle parking, we had a parking study completed by ACOM Canada Limited in November that looked at the net increase of 2 additional dwelling units and the effect that that would have on the parking. It was found that it created a demand of less than 1 parking space, which was seen to be supported of 0 additional spaces. The existing development does not have any parking associated with it currently. There's active transportation, and public transit is encouraged in the downtown core, and it's also within a 3-minute walk of the downtown transfer point. For amenity area, we had been requesting 0 amenity space, and were asked to look at the existing indoor private amenity that was in the existing development and the proposed. When we compare those, we have approximately 44 square meters in the existing condition, and in the proposed development, we are at 46 square meters of indoor private amenity space. So we're actually slightly improving on the private amenity, and there is currently no existing outdoor amenity space. So this plan shows the existing amenity space, which was located only in 2 units. Whereas now the proposed plan has it spread over 4 units, so that's a little more equally spread for the tenants. And if there's any questions?
Thank you. Could I hear from staff, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, a notice of the meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and we received one piece of correspondence an email, which is part of the committee's package.
Great, thank you. Questions from the committee? Councillor Neal.
Just very quickly, have we received any correspondence regarding this, either for or again?
Through you, Madam Chair, there's just been the one email that was in support of the application.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I'd like to open this to the members of the public. Are there any members of the public who have questions about this application? Mr. Dixon?
Frank Dixon, 495 Alfred, Apartment 2, K7K, 4J4. Just have a very brief point. You're speaking about the amenity space, and you did some calculations as to how that's changing, but you said that there's no outdoor amenity space for, I guess it's sort of like a complex of different apartments, but you have a sort of like a channel coming off Princess going into the unit and then into sort of like a backyard. And I'm wondering if any of that might be considered as amenity space. Like the channel is going to stay, right? It was from, you know, the sort of the earlier historic era of the area there. So I've walked by there numerous times. I've always been kind of curious about the building as to what's there. So now we're gonna find out. So just wondering if that can be possibly seen as amenity space. Thank you.
Thanks, and I'll just wait and see if anyone else has questions. Are there any other members of the public wish to? No? Please respond.
Okay. So the existing courtyard, I'd say it's been underutilized. It's a little overgrown at this point. There is a public, it's not a pub, sorry, it's a right-of-way that is currently located in the courtyard. You can see it's the dash line that's marked up there. So a large portion of it is right-of-way, and the remaining portion, to make it flexible for potential for commercial patios, the preference was to not apply those lands as amenity space for apartments, in that it could be developed as patio space for restaurants on the ground floor.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'd like to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And that will conclude our first public meeting. And our second public meeting is application for zoning bylaw amendment 202 Splinter Court. And I would ask the applicant to come forward.
I will be Rhonda Horn-McQuay with Colburn and Campbell Architects, and I will be speaking on behalf of the applicant. So again, we're going to have a brief introduction. We're looking to add a secondary suite to a basement at 202 Splinter Court. We'll go over the site context, existing layout, proposed plans, and questions. This is just a map of the overall neighborhood. So it's located to the north side of the Frontenac Mall, in that neighborhood behind there. And 202 Splinter Court is right on it's a corner lot on the court. Here you can see the satellite view, and with its driveway. So we are looking to add a secondary suite to the basement level, which is not currently permitted by the bylaw. We are meeting all the building code requirements for the secondary suite. The parking requirements are for 2 spaces. The driveway is sufficient for 2 in accordance with city bylaw parking spaces, but in functionality will fit 4 vehicles in the driveway. This is just the existing basement plan. which then is being modified to have a one-bedroom suite in addition to the common spaces that are currently located in the basement there. Oops. And just to go back to the parking, there are 3 tenants proposed for the dwelling, and that includes the tenant that would be in the basement suite. There's up to 3 staff work at the dwelling in the day with 1 overnight, and there's sufficient room in the driveway for 4 vehicles. Engineering department did also review the parking and were satisfied that it was meeting the needs and had no concerns. They did also consult with transportation, and it was noted that a resident may request an on-street parking assessment be completed at any time if it does not need to be related to a development application if there is a concern for safety with the on-street parking. If there are any questions?
Could I hear from staff, please?
Madam Chair, notification for the zoning amendment application was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. Public notices were mailed out to 100 property owners within a 120-meter radius of the subject property. 4 pieces of correspondence was received in total, one that included signatures by 6 additional property owners. Through these correspondences, there were concerns raised over on-street parking associated to the proposed secondary suite. The applicant has verified that there would be no more than 3 vehicles associated to the property at any point in time, and the property has met zoning bylaw requirements for on-site parking of 2 vehicles, and the driveway functionally would be able to accommodate up to 4 vehicles. Also, consultation with our engineering department. They have reviewed the matter and revealed that they do not have concerns with on-street parking at this point in time. However, there is a process to review on-street parking by engineering services in conjunction with transportation services at any point in time, irrespective of the subject planning application. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Councillor McLaren.
Thank you. So in talking to some of the residents there and noticing that this is very close to a river, I know that 191 has had seepage into their basement from the river perhaps, and 197 is in the middle of repairing from a flood. I'm wondering if any consideration has been taken into the possibility that they're on a floodplain and that they may be flooded in the future?
I'm not aware of any flooding that has occurred or had in the past on this property, so it's certainly something that would be considered in the design of the suite.
Also, many of the residents have also expressed concern that there may be parking and spaces for 4 parking spots there, but it's rarely ever used, and that the fact that it's a group home has a lot of visitors that park there. So as I understand it, there's 4 parking spots there for 3 employees and 3 units of residents. Is that correct?
Correct. However, the residents do not have vehicles, so essentially it's the staff that would be utilizing their driveway, and visitors, much like visitors to any other home on a street, are able to use the street during the day.
And that may be true for residents now. Is there anything about these residents that they cannot drive?
I would ask for clarification from community living on that.
I think.
Sorry,
you
did I
could
hear that they
come-
would never be able to drive?
Could I
Okay.
ask you to come to a microphone, please, and so that everyone can hear you? Thanks. And And if you could just give your name, please?
Sherry Scott from Community Living Kingston District. And just to clarify, the individuals that live in the home are people that would not be in a position to drive a vehicle.
Thank you. And the last point is that many people have felt a certain lack of safety as a result of not being able to see along that sight triangle when they cross the street. As you can see, there's no sidewalks on Splinter Court. So people walking to the street or to the sidewalk from Splinter Court, if it's parked right on that corner there, and also people driving may not be able to see cars coming from their right. And so I've been told that the best way to deal with that is to ask for an assessment of that particular spot for a no parking sign. Is there any other concerns, or sorry, is there any way that you can get or ensure or communicate to the staff and to any visitors to use the driveway first?
I know that that concern has been brought to their attention and that they are communicating that and are actively making the driveway their first course of parking.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, I think it would be up to the city. We've sort of discussed a stop sign at the driveway, and that would be up to the city to, with our push, to have a stop sign put there so nobody can park on that corner that's a problem. Yeah. A stop sign, or a little no parking sign from here to the corner. Yeah. Okay, and now I'll see if there are any more questions from the committee. I would like to open the public meeting to members of the public. Yes, sir, if you'd like to come to a microphone, and James will turn it on for you.
Do I have to press the button? Nope, you're on. I'm on.
And if you could give your name and address, and it's a 5-minute limit, please.
Good evening. My name is Dave Honey, and I live at 196 Splinter Court, which is just above the house in question, right next door to us. Mr. McLaren has covered most of the issues that I had in mind. Myself and neighbors bought into Splinter Court as a relatively quiet residential neighborhood. And it has remained that way for the most part, with the exception of 202. They're conducting a business there, and it's the coming and going of staff at regular shift intervals, along with the parking, which Mr. McLaren has brought up. It tends to be a bit of a problem, and aggravating at times, especially the parking. Leaving that for a moment, I have seen the proposed plans for the basement, which includes a common room, a sitting room, 1 bedroom, and a kitchenette. Now, the thing that concerns me a bit, let me go back a bit. I had quite a long discussion with Mr. Peter Sproul, the executive director of Community Living, and he assured me that the place is being renovated to house 1 more challenged young gentleman. Given the proposed plan for a common room, a sitting room, a bedroom, and a kitchenette, allows for at least two more bedrooms if they so desire, which puts another 2 people, actually another 3 people. There's only 2 residents living there now. In the event of going to 5 residents, we're looking at 4, perhaps 5 staff at any given time, and again, escalating the parking situation. The other thing that, and I didn't hear a lot of what Mr. Saffett said, but there was a memo or an email sent to the city. I assume that you got it. It was with several signatures on it. You got it, okay. I rest my case. Those are our thoughts. I feel, you can add 196 Splinter Court to the flooding business. And, hang on, 192. All three houses on the north side, including 202, has had flooding problems. I know that for a fact, and I suspect there's a whole lot more.
I will ask our applicant to respond to you after I've checked if there are any other people who wish to speak. And then I'll ask her to address your concerns.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to Splinter Court? If you'd like to go ahead, I think it's mostly to do with the parking and proposed use.
I think we'll start with addressing the layout of the basement floor plan. It is strictly to add a one-bedroom suite and refresh the basement to include the common functions that are already in the building, with a common room that might be seen as like a TV room or quiet room for use, and a shared laundry. The other room there is a shared entry, and the sitting room is like the living room of that one-bedroom apartment or secondary suite. In terms of parking, again, it's for 3 residents. There are 3 staff, and there is up to 4 spaces available in the driveway. Okay.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? Councillor Neal.
Just a quick question of staff, if I could. I know that quite often these kinds of proposals, it's specified within the zoning approval that there's a set number of bedrooms. Will that be the case with this application? In other words, it will say specifically that this is a 1-bedroom, and so it couldn't morph without seeking further zoning approval, couldn't morph into 2 or 3 bedrooms. Is that accurate?
Manager Vendetti?
Through you, Madam Chair, the zoning as recommended does not include that. However, if the committee sees fit, that could be an amendment to the recommendation.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. And that will conclude our second public meeting. And we have a third public meeting, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 682 Princess Street. I think Mr. Kay, I saw him in the hallway, will be presenting. Oh, Ms. Vendetti?
Through you, Madam Chair, it doesn't appear that the applicant is here. I could quickly describe the application.
I think he's right at the end of the hall there. James is going to get him. Yeah. We can get him to do his presentation.
second from the bottom.
Good evening. So my name is Mark Talley. I'm a planner with IBI Group. Thank you for coming tonight. For those of you who come out to hear the application in the public meeting. So this is for a zoning bylaw amendment for 682 Princess Street. The application is for two things. First is to reduce the minimum amount of amenity space required from 285 square meters to 200 square meters. And the second is to allow a dwelling unit or a portion thereof to be located in a cellar. The subject property is located on the south side of Princess Street between Victoria and Macdonell. The existing development is a 4-story, 3-unit development that's essentially a reconstruction of a residential building that was there previously that was destroyed by fire. The building that's being built is larger than the building that was originally there, but the building envelope and the units are compliant with the C4 zoning. So a building permit was issued in compliance with the C4 zoning. The applicant, partway through construction, decided to change the roof from a flat roof, which was to have amenity space provided on it, decided to change it to a pitched roof for a variety of reasons. This necessitated relocating amenity space elsewhere. He had a couple options to relocate the amenity space within the building, either adding an additional deck at the rear or finding some other kind of internal amenity space. But given the recent amenity space study commissioned by the city that recommended a minimum of 10 square meters per dwelling unit in terms of amenity space, which would require only 30 square meters for the whole of the development, the applicant felt that a reduction to 200 square meters for amenity space was made more sense in this case. So hence the application to reduce from 285 to 200 rather than build additional amenity space within the building. And the second change was through, since he's filing the zoning application, also to allow for bedrooms to be located in the cellar of the building, which the bylaw, the current bylaw in 8499 doesn't allow, but is allowed elsewhere outside the former city of Kingston boundaries. So this is a site plan. The building is located at the street, and it's a odd-shaped lot in that there's an angled section that goes back here where there's location for parking. So there's 3 parallel stacked parking spaces that comply with the provisions of the bylaw to provide 1 parking space per dwelling unit. There is a kind of alleyway underneath a building that overhangs, so the alleyway to provide access to the parking from Princess Street. These show elevations. They're slightly different. They don't have the balconies here at the 2nd level. They're not proposed to have that any longer. There are balconies at the 3rd and 4th floor level. There's a pitched roof, as you can see in these plans. So revised plans have been submitted to the building department for the pitched roof, which actually was the original design. So those are being reviewed now. Those of you who've seen the site would notice that there is, in fact, a pitched roof on there right now. That was done in December in an effort to enclose the building before snow came. So that was done, but again, the application for the building permit has been updated or is applied for to update the plans to show the pitched roof. Again, the roof as proposed does comply with the zoning. There's no issues with height or angular plane. It's more of a building permit question to adjust the building permit to show a pitched roof rather than a flat roof. So in terms of the policies, the 2 requests, they're very minor in terms of amenity space and bedrooms in the basement or in the cellar. The PPS doesn't specifically speak to that kind of granular detail in terms of the plans. but overall, the proposal is consistent with the intent of the PPS. With respect to the OP, the property is designated Main Street Commercial, is in the Williamsville Main Street Special Policy Area. The policies require adequate amenity space, which in this case, based on the recent study done by the city, our City Commission study on amenity space, we feel that 200 square meters is adequate, given that the recommendation of the study identifies that only 30 square meters would be needed to be adequate. There's no policies that speak to bedrooms or dwelling units in the cellar. And overall, the proposal, we believe, is adequate and meets the functional needs of the site users. With respect to zoning, the property is currently in the C4 zone, and the building permit was granted in compliance with the C4 zoning. The proposed zoning would be a site-specific C4 zone, again, to reduce the amenity space and to allow for bedrooms in the cellar. As I alluded to earlier, bedrooms are permitted as of right in cellars elsewhere in the city of Kingston. It's only within the former city of Kingston town boundary that bedrooms were not or have not been allowed as of right. They're allowed typically through a site-specific rezoning, most usually in support of secondary suite applications. We'll note that in the future, in the current draft of the new zoning bylaw, that prohibition has been removed. So throughout the city, bedrooms would be allowed in cellars under the new first draft of the new zoning bylaw. And the reason why the bedroom restriction was removed in all the other bylaws of the city is because location of bedrooms in cellars is something that's governed through the building code and not through zoning. So the city has made a decision based on staff reports and council decisions that is where it should be left at a building code level. In terms of amenity space, as we said, the recent City Commission study looking at what's adequate for amenity space identified that 10 square meters in the core areas or the corridor and core areas or centers of the city, that 10 square meters per dwelling unit was sufficient regardless of the number of bedrooms. The applicant's proposing 200 square meters in total, so that's about 67 square meters per dwelling unit rather than the 10 that was recommended. So we're of the opinion that the 200 reduction is appropriate. And the amenity space, if you've seen the floor plans, which I can show, it's a variety of amenity space, both outdoor and indoor. The units are quite spacious, so we believe that the amenity space is appropriate and adequate. So in conclusion, we believe the application is appropriate and ask that the committee recommend it for approval later tonight in the meeting. Thank you.
And could I hear from staff, please? Ms. Didrikson?
Through you, Madam Chair, notice of the public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. We received 5 pieces of correspondence, 2 in support and 3 raising questions with respect to the number of stories of the development and the roof under construction.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Councillor Neal.
Thank you. I have a series of questions, and I'm going to put them out on the floor now. Normally, I would kind of wait until the application came forward, but I think there's some things that need clarification. As I understand it, currently you have a building permit that allows for 3 stories with a flat roof. Is that accurate? That's your current building permit.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. The change from a flat roof to a sloped roof isn't a planning change, though. It's a building permit change.
I appreciate that, but it is a change that's taken place outside of the building permit, current building permit process.
Yes.
Thank you. I too can we go back if we could to the renderings of the great. I guess that's the other question that constituents, citizens in the neighborhood have been asking. Given the windows, the placement, and given the earlier comment that identifies this as a 4-story building, I'm trying to get my head around why we would have Juliet balcony windows on a space that isn't being used residentially.
Miscommunication with my designer who what's been installed on the site are 4x4 windows rather than those sliding patio doors. So that rendering of the elevation is not correct.
Okay, so what we're looking at now is not what would be getting built.
No, on the mezzanine level, like what appears to be a second floor, which is actually still the first floor, there's not Juliet balconies there, nor is there anywhere on Princess Street.
Okay. According to the new Williamsville zoning, which I'd like to point out is roughly 4 years old at this time, so it's pretty current. It calls for ground floor to be 4.5 meters or greater for the potential of commercial use, which is what the plan ideally recommends. But recognizing that in an interim, we could have residential. I guess the other issue that I have is that because of the installation of a mezzanine floor, which I understand is at the back, the south side of the building, it's only a 9-foot ceiling at that spot, at that roughly 9-foot ceiling in that area. And this is a question that perhaps staff can address. The Ontario Building Code, as I understand it, states that mezzanines are defined as 40% or less of the ground floor. If it goes above 40%, then it's considered a story legally. I know that the drawings, the renderings, suggested about a 47% floor mezzanine space. So wouldn't it then be defined as legitimately a second floor under the building code?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's my understanding that the building department is working very closely with the applicant to make sure that that mezzanine level qualifies under the building code. I'm not aware of the 47% mezzanine that you're referring to, but I know the building department has issued a building permit for the 3-story building, and to qualify for that, it needs to have a mezzanine that meets that definition.
Clearly, that's a concern. Did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to add through you, Madam Chair, the application before the Planning Committee tonight is for amenity space and bedrooms and basement. It's not an opportunity to look at zoning compliance of an issued building permit under the code. So I just want to keep this on track and not delve into broader issues that are at this point being dealt with by staff in terms of building permit compliance.
I'm not sure I can siphon the difference between building code compliance as presented in this proposal and zoning. The other question I had is, according to the drawings, the mezzanine in the back is enclosed, and it's identified as both amenity in one part of the presentation and as empty or blank space in another. I'm just curious, that enclosed area at second floor level above the mezzanine, how would that be utilized as amenity space, as is suggested in one portion of the presentation, or as blank enclosed vacant space in another? Perhaps you could address.
Yeah, and I apologize for the confusion. I think there's been so many, we've probably redesigned this building at least 9 or 10 times. And I think what we had sent staff in November or December when we first applied has changed. This shows the accurate mezzanine. And just running some quick math, we're below the 40% that code allows. And it's meant to be an open mezzanine space at the back of the building. So I'm not sure if I misunderstand your question about open. But the area in front of the mezzanine, like on the street side, is open, 16 feet high ceilings.
My final question is to staff, and it's similar to another proposal that's coming before us tonight. These are 13 bedrooms proposed, 1 4-bedroom, 1 3-bedroom, 1 6-bedroom unit. I believe that's accurate. Given the nature of this neighborhood, those will likely be adults. So again, I'm going to bring forward my concern about only 3 parking spaces for 13 adults, a 13-adult residency. But will there be any site plan agreement coming forward with this property? Or is it because it's only 3 units, regardless of the multitude of bedrooms, there'll be no site plan? Is that accurate? Or perhaps you could, and I'm sorry, I didn't have that question before. It just came to mind.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The site plan control bylaw only requires site plan control for properties that have 4 or more dwelling units. And with the fact that the building is entirely residential and there is no commercial component to the building, site plan control technically is not required for this structure. With respect to the number of parking spaces, the bylaw requires 1 parking space per unit. So the number of parking spaces technically complies.
Okay, thank you. Those are 2 areas that I think we have to change bylaws in, but thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Turner.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I believe we're here just for 2 reasons tonight for this proposal, and it'll come back another time. So I'm just not comfortable with the word cellar. So if you could just elaborate a little bit about the cellar, that would be helpful to me. Thank you.
The zoning bylaw, or the various zoning bylaws of the city currently define a basement as a subgrade level that is more than 50% out of the ground, and a cellar as a subgrade level that's more than 50% below ground. So in this case, the lower level is a cellar because it is further below ground. So.
And how much further below ground, and will it have a window? And I'm sure it will have a window.
Yeah, I'm sure, Dave, can you comment on the depth of the cellar in terms of how much below grade it is? And also windows that would be in the...
Yeah, it complies with building code definition of a bedroom in terms of adequate window sizing and placement and ceiling height.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I'd like to open the floor to any members of the public who would like to speak. Mr. Dixon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for presentation. I've got 4 points that are generally diverse here. Councillor Neal covered some of my points, so I won't go through those again. In general, I support the plan for the site as you've outlined it. It's trying to recover from being right across the street from the fire. I've been walking by there a number of times, so it's on it's a high density area. It's on transit, so that's those are advantages. There's shopping close by and so forth. So I do have some concerns which weren't raised. I guess maybe, the first one, I just want to clarify. There's been questions on the cellar aspect, and if that were a separate unit with the cellar portion only, that wouldn't be allowed, right? But as it is now, it's part of the unit that's above it as well, right? You have that unit is some bedrooms, and then some part of it is one level down. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. My next point is just referring to the photographs, which are on page 67 and 68. I was walking by there earlier this week, and the stage of construction has advanced considerably from what the photos show, number one, so that they really aren't current, right? This committee is going to be deciding the matter, so I think they should have information that's higher quality in terms of being up to date. And number two, let's face it, the quality of the photos is terrible. They were taken like probably, early evening. There's almost no light there. And it's just really hard to pick out details. So putting all that together and going along with the points raised by Councillor Neal, who's the councillor for the district, I'm going to advocate that this committee defer this application until better information is obtained on the questions raised from the committee and on the points that I've raised. But I want to emphasize, in general, I'm supporting it, but I think that the committee needs to have better information to base its choice upon. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Mr. Grenville?
My name is John Grenville. I live at 24 Jenkins Street in Williamsville District. I am not going to speak to the amenity space nor the other the below grade habitation, but I am speaking to another matter which I think is important to consider. I want to make it clear that I'm not here tonight because I have concerns with the property owner's objective to build a triplex along Williamsville Main Street, or even to build or even problems with the triplex. In fact, I support that objective and like to see more development along Princess Street in Williamsville in accordance with the Williamsville Main Street design guidelines that Council endorsed unanimously and were subsequently integrated into the official plan and the zoning bylaw. My concern relates to how the Williamsville Main Street study is being implemented, and specifically how the bylaw is being interpreted. The zoning bylaw states that the ground floor ceiling height must be 4.5 meters to provide good commercial space and to allow for a uniform presentation of commercial uses along the main street. In this instance, ground floor commercial use is not required, residential is okay, but a ground floor ceiling height of 4.5 meters is needed to allow for future conversion to the desired commercial use. In this instance, the building has a ground floor ceiling height of more than 4.5 meters for the front part of the ground floor, with a mezzanine in the back half of the ground floor that reduces the ceiling height to 9 feet below the mezzanine and 8 feet above the mezzanine. When I posed the question to the planning department as to why the entire ground floor did not need a ceiling height of 4.5 meters, I was informed that the interpretation of staff with respect to the minimum floor to ceiling height for the ground floor story is that 4.5 meters is met by the majority of the ground floor with a ceiling height of greater than 4.5 meters. The bylaw requirement was not crafted to contemplate raised mezzanines, but it's staff's interpretation that the mezzanine would not constitute the ceiling of the ground floor. I'm always interested in interpretations because I've learned from experience that the interpretation will be used in the future and will actually become the de facto bylaw, even though the bylaw will say something different. I have a few questions. One, is the interpretation requiring a 4.5 meter ceiling height for half of the ground floor what was intended for the Williamsville Main Street study when it was approved 3 years ago? And two, how will the interpretation of needing a ground floor height of 4.5 meters get reflected in future designs for the Williamsville Main Street as a result of this interpretation? And I guess the real question is whether this is really what we had planned. I've one other comment on the matter. I attended the Zoning 101 seminar provided by the Planning Department, which was excellent, thanks to Greg Newman and Laura McCormick. And I was told that bylaws were meant to be read and not interpreted. And in fact, they reinforced this several times, that they are to be read and not interpreted. Accordingly, I'm puzzled by the fact that the reason why the ground floor for this project does not have a ceiling height of 4.5 meters as required by the zoning bylaw is because staff have interpreted the zoning bylaw. My question to staff is whether the much wider implications of an interpretation of the bylaw have been considered, and perhaps more importantly, why is this part of the zoning bylaw being interpreted and not read as was intended? I have one other comment relating to the roof. I attempted to get information from Dash on this project, but unfortunately it had not been posted. This was rectified yesterday, actually, with a significant amount of information. In the meantime, I took a walk along Princess Street to see the construction, and I was more than a little surprised to see the peaked roof already in place. I understand completely the owner's need to get the building closed in from a safety, security, and building protection point of view. However, the plans for the peaked roof are dated from June 2016, and I would have expected the roof issue would have been sorted out before now, so that the planning committee didn't end up being asked to approve something that for all intents and purposes has already been built. Those are my comments. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? I'll ask Mr. Toe and Mr. Kay to respond.
So I won't speak to the mezzanine issue because it's not relevant to the application. If staff choose to speak to it, they may. With respect to the pitched roof, again, there's no need for an approval on the pitched roof. The pitched roof is not contrary to the zoning. The only reason the pitched roof comes into the discussion is because it displaces amenity space. And so the question is whether or not amenity space gets put elsewhere on the property or whether the amenity space is reduced. And the applicant is asked to reduce the amenity space and to a level that we believe is supported and supportable by the property. So. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're right. We are being asked to reduce amenity space and allow dwelling units in the cellar. We are not actually here for a discussion of the mezzanine, although certainly we are all welcome to speak offline to staff about the questions that have been raised this evening. Councillor Neal.
Just very quickly, a question for Mr. Kay. Thank you for calling me yesterday. We had a interesting conversation. And when I asked you at the time, what would be the consequence if this project were deferred today or defeated at this committee, you had suggested that there would be a way that you could meet the amenity space requirements of the current zoning bylaw. Would you care to comment on that at this time?
Is that okay? Yeah, thanks, Mark. There's another 450 square feet of amenity space provided. Actually, can you show the mezzanine floor plan? Yeah. So through the carriageway, there's amenity space that we hadn't included in the 200 square meters. There's another 450 square feet in the, right there, yeah. And then so between that 450 square feet and an extra deck level on the south-facing portion that you see here, that would basically be at the same height as the sloped roof, that would be how we would achieve the amenity space requirement. But yeah.
And then, because and I know this is a frustration for you and for many of us here in the room today, but as I understand it, the reason why this is just now coming to planning for an approval is because initially your plan was to have a proposal, and the first one that you ever showed me, and I remember asking that question, was going to be in full compliance with the existing Williamsville zoning. And therefore, it would only require planning department input and recognition that it met that. And you would get your building permit by right, and it would never take up our time here tonight. But it was the pitched roof that happened, and then the subsequent loss of amenity space that brings you here tonight. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, displacing the amenity space from what was first designed as a flat roof to above the carriageway and potentially another level of the south-facing deck. But, you know, in my opinion, and what's consistent with other applications, providing that amount of amenity space is redundant.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? I wonder if, for the committee's sake, it would help if staff explained how cellars work in other parts of the city, because it's specific to the downtown and the word cellar, but in many parts of the city you can, by right, have bedrooms in the cellar. So I think if we could just get a clarification of that.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. When the zoning bylaw amendments were done across the city to allow secondary suites as of right within the project area, the bylaws for Kingston, for the former Pittsburgh Township, former Kingston Township, Cataract Way North, they were amended to remove any restrictions on bylaw or dwelling units within cellars, recognizing that building code regulated that. That restriction was left in the city central zoning bylaws because those bylaws were not amended as part of the secondary or of the pilot project area for the secondary suites. So when someone wants to put a bedroom or a unit in a cellar, they require a zoning bylaw amendment because there's a prohibition within bylaw 8499, which is the city central, as well as 96259, which is the downtown and harbor area, that specifically says no habitable space shall be provided within a cellar. So because of that, there's a specific requirement for a zoning bylaw amendment. But as noted in Mr. Tao's presentation, that's proposed to be removed going forward in the comprehensive zoning bylaw, recognizing that it's really more of a building code issue than a land use issue.
That's great, thank you. Councillor Neal?
Just very quickly, as somebody who champions secondary suites, but is in an area that there is that restriction, I just want to point out it isn't the principle of secondary suites. It's the question of capacity that makes us require a little more reflection in the core of the city. Is that accurate? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. And I will close that public meeting and open the regular Planning Committee meeting and call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda. Councillor Turner, second, with an addition?
May I ask for a part for petitions, please?
Ask for,
A session or section for petitions?
you want to separate some things out?
Petitions.
Oh, petitions. I thought you said partitions, sorry. Absolutely, petitions, yes. So approval of the agenda. Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Osanek. All those in favor? Oh, with the addendum, yes, that we got tonight. All those in favor? Thank you. I think petitions come next. Are there any petitions?
Thank you. To whom it may concern regarding the proposed bylaw amendment for 202 Splinter Court, filed number D140352016. We, the residents of Splinter Court, oppose this bylaw amendment. The parking is already an issue. The number of communities living residents would be excessive in the site. We have had issues in the past and which we don't want to reoccur. Also, most of the residents signing this objection, have had water issues in their homes. We are a small cul-de-sac with single-family homes and would like it to stay that way. If possible, if this proposal is allowed, it will set a precedent which would allow future applications to rent apartments in the residence. Thank you. And it's got 6 signatures.
Great, thank you very much. And next is confirmation of the minutes, December 15th. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Osanek. Errors, omissions, comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Disclosures of pecuniary interest, no delegations, no briefings, and our first order of business is 202 Splinter Court, Community Living Kingston. And we have a recommendation from staff. Councillor McLaren.
Based on a question by my fellow Councillor Neal and based on staff's wording, may I make an amendment to this recommendation that reads... Put it on the floor first. Oh, sorry.
Moved by you, seconded by Councillor Osanek.
Sorry. No worries. That reads that the recommendation for report D14-035-2016 be amended by adding the following provision as follows. 1.2 subsection C, that the second residential unit be limited to a maximum of 1 bedroom.
Councillor Osanek seconded. It's been moved. Any comments, questions? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. For the amendment, yes. And now we still have the recommendation to vote on. Do we have a mover for the recommendation from staff? Councillor McLaren, seconded by Councillor Neal. Comments, questions? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And our second piece of business is 682 Princess Street, zoning bylaw amendment concerning the reduction in amenity space and 2 bedrooms in the cellar. Is this moving it, putting it on the floor? Questions?
Actually, I'll wait until it's on the floor.
Moved by Councillor Turner and seconded by Councillor Osanek. And Councillor Neal, question?
Yes. This has been, we've received on very short notice considerable amount of correspondence regarding this, and I think, I appreciate, as an earlier speaker said, that this building is being rebuilt. And I have some questions about the number of bedrooms, but I think by right, and it'll be good when it is indeed rebuilt. But there have been some frustrating things that have transpired. A peaked roof replacing a flat roof when indeed that wasn't what the initial application was for. And the initial application I appreciate that the developer, the proponent, shared that information with me, and I was quite happy with what was shared with me at the time, because it showed full and complete compliance with the Williamsville corridor zoning, which is only 4 years old. So it's not like we have zoning that, as we do in other areas, that is 20, 30, 40 years old, and we're being asked to tweak it in order to make something feasible. This is new zoning. And I asked specifically the proponent yesterday, and I thank him for honestly responding today, that the consequence of us defeating this would be him going back and getting the appropriate building permit to allow what he's already built, would allow a clarification on the definition of what a mezzanine is, and whether indeed he's in compliance with the building code on the question of mezzanine. But he could indeed, with some additional cost and an additional, I want to say patio, but an additional deck, he could indeed comply with the requirements of the existing bylaw. And if those things had happened, he wouldn't even have been here tonight. But right now, I can't support the proposal that's before us, because it's created more questions than it's answered. And frankly, he could build according to the code at some additional cost, and I appreciate that, but he could build, by his own admission, according to the current code. So I would consider moving deferral and asking him to go back to planning and seek compliance with the existing zoning. But I'm not sure that that's a question that I could reasonably defer for that purpose, because if he complies with the zoning bylaw, he doesn't have to come back to us. Perhaps staff can give me some guidance on this.
Seller too. Ms. Vendetti?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. With respect to the amenity space, you're absolutely correct that the building could be, because the building proposed and through the building permit complies with the requirements of the zone, you're correct in that he could go back and look at options to provide more amenity space on site. However, there's still a requirement for the zoning amendment to allow the bedrooms within the cellar. So that would still require a zoning bylaw amendment.
I appreciate that, and I would totally support that. So I guess what I would, and I'm looking to staff for some guidance here, if we were to, can we separate, the way it's worded, can we separate those two portions of it, vote for the additional amenity space in the basement, and if we defeated or deferred the other portion, it would give the proponent an opportunity to go back to planning and get it right. Is that a feasible suggestion?
Ms. Vendetti?
Thank you. It could be done. Essentially, what you would be doing is approving one zoning amendment and then essentially directing us to work with the applicant and potentially bring back a second amendment for your consideration. We've already had the public meeting, so it would be a component of it that would be approved. Ideally, from a planning perspective, it's preferable to review a project as a whole as opposed to breaking it into components.
I don't want to jump in with a deferral and a separation before other members of the committee have an opportunity to speak, but I'll go back to that later.
Councillor Turner.
Yes, I have a concern I'd like to ask staff about with respect to Councillor Neal's potential of deferral. I'd be concerned, I can't see from the pictures that well, but would we be putting this builder at any risk of losing, investment with no roof? And how long would this be tied up in planning? And I would just be concerned, could we be costing him a lot of money by stalling this? That's my concern, and that just doesn't bode well with us. I think that doesn't look very fair. And I know, what him bringing it in late, and but should we be really penalizing him that severely that it may cost him a lot of money? That concerns me. And what kind of statement are we making as a council and as a planning department? I know you're frustrated, but I think it's something we should consider here. And that's my thoughts.
Ms. Vendetti's just been conferring.
Thank you. The applicant has confirmed that although building has ceased on the site right now because of the confusion around the roof and the need for the building permit to be reviewed, there would be damages incurred by having him stop construction at this point in time. The building isn't fully secured from the elements, so that water and freezing would cause damage to the structure as it is if he doesn't proceed with the structure as it is. So the structure that's there today does comply with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So a deferral obviously would cause some concern in terms of time and potential impact to him. With respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, if it is supported tonight and goes forward to council, I mean, he could still propose the, he could still amend the building permit for the peaked roof because it's not a zoning issue. The zoning issue is the amenity space and the ability to provide amenity space. So as we heard tonight, there are other opportunities to provide amenity space on the site. That's one of the issues in terms of changing it from a flat roof where outdoor amenity space was going to be provided to a peaked roof that reduced that amenity space requirement. So there is a risk to the applicant should he proceed with the building construction, but should he proceed with securing the structure and not be successful in terms of the amenity space, there are options in terms of providing the additional amenity space. I'm not sure to what extent, but that's something that we could discuss with the applicant offline.
Could I just ask you to clarify a little further, too? We've just had a public meeting with 6 apartments with no amenity space, actually. So, and there has been discussion of a change to the amenity space requirement that we have seen as a council but hasn't been enacted. Could you just explain that, why some people are saying you don't need as much in the future if we change it?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. It was recognized that the majority of applications we process for multi-residential development come forward requesting amendments to amenity space. Because of this, we knew it needed to be reviewed. The standards have been amended and modified to address a number of different things. So Dylan was retained to do an amenity space review for us. That amenity space study was completed and has been accepted by council in fulfillment of the contract. What the recommendations of that study were that our requirements for amenity space were significantly greater than many other comparable municipalities. Currently, our amenity space is calculated based on a per bedroom rate, and it increases significantly as the number of bedrooms in a unit go up. What the recommendation of the amenity space review study was that in areas where intensification is incented, so along the Williamsville Main Street corridor, a minimum area of 10 square meters per dwelling unit be required for amenity space. That 10 square meters doesn't count living rooms, but it can consist of decks, it can consist of other communal spaces, but it doesn't consider private interior amenity, which is currently considered within our existing zoning. So with respect to this proposal, they meet the requirement of the 10 square meters of amenity space per unit, and based on the amount proposed, they actually exceed that because they're proposing 200 square meters of amenity space. So if there's any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councillor Neal.
Yes. And again, staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the whole issue of the peaked roof and securing it is not a planning issue. It's not a planning consideration because of their non-compliance with the existing building permit that was issued. They have either been given a temporary stop work order or, but all that they need to do has nothing to do with us or our decisions here tonight. They just have to go to the building department and request a new building permit to allow them to bring the development into compliance. I believe that that's accurate.
That's correct. Just to be clear, there was no stop work order issued. As soon as we noticed what was happening, the developer was contacted and voluntarily stopped the construction on the site. So we didn't need to go to a stop work order. And you're correct in that it's an amended building permit, so the plans regarding the peaked roof need to be reviewed by the building department and then the permit updated.
So totally up to the chief building inspector to take care of that on the city's behalf. Okay, I will move a motion if there isn't, if my two colleagues who haven't spoken yet, then I would like to.
And could you put it in writing, please, for the clerk?
I'm sorry?
Could you put it in writing for the clerk, please?
I can if you can give me just a couple of minutes. Sorry, it's not a haiku, but I think I've got it. And I'll seek a seconder for this. The motion would be to amend the recommendation by separating the cellar dwelling rooms for approval and deferring the reduction of amenity space in order for our planning department to work with the proponent to bring the project into compliance with the current zoning as has been expressly stated as feasible. If there's a seconder for that?
Seconded by Councillor McLaren.
And if you can put the number of this down. There we go.
Okay, we have the amendment on the floor. Did you wish to speak to
Great.
it?
I think the first part should be unanimous because I don't believe we have objections to the concept of intensification through secondary suites or through basement dwellings. So that portion, I'm hoping, is a slam dunk. The second portion, yes, we have a proposal before us and a report that speaks to amenity space.
I think I have to be careful here because you're asking for deferral of the amenity space. And it's really time or place with the deferral portion.
Oh, okay.
The
Perhaps
seller
we could
portion.
separate my amendment then, and we could vote on the first part and then on the second, and then on the
Vote on the
deferral
seller.
part, because I'm not deferring basements.
Right. I think, yes, that is a little confusing, isn't it? We should probably put the motion on the floor with the seller amendment as separated into approval, a motion on the floor just for the seller, and then I will bring back a deferral motion, which will not be debatable.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we did, I've had a request from the clerk to ask staff about the amenity space discussion, if that causes an issue, if we defer that.
Thank you. I'm just actually conferring with them right now with respect to what the impact of that would be. So just give me 1 second. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. With respect to the amenity space, the applicant made the statement that they could comply, but they're not 100% certain of the exact floor area of the amenity space that they would be able to comply with. In addition, they have indicated that as per the amenity space study that was provided to the city and accepted by council to be brought into the updated zoning bylaw amendment, it's their preference to not construct amenity space that's not going to be actively used by the residents of the structure. So their preference would be to leave the amenity space as proposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that doesn't really answer the deferral part, but I think you get the drift. So we will continue with voting on the motion. We'll separate, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I forgot that part when I was responding. With respect to separating out the deferral of the amenity space, one of the challenges with that is that in order to get the building permit for the construction with the 4 additional bedrooms in the basement, the applicant is required to show how they're meeting all of the amenity space requirements. So the fact is that they wouldn't necessarily be able to proceed with the construction of the additional bedrooms in the absence of having the amenity space component resolved. And then with respect to separating it out and taking forward one bylaw it would have to be another bylaw brought forward to Planning Committee for consideration separately with respect to just the amenity space component if the two are separated.
So I think what I'm hearing from staff is we either defer the whole thing or not, basically, that the seller separation would not really benefit the applicant or hurt the applicant. They go together. That's what I'm hearing. So I think, yeah, so perhaps we could
And I will
withdraw.
just say in a moment of frustration, we're not allowed to speak to anything but time or place.
Yes.
But the proponent and staff are allowed to speak to it. That's a little frustrating.
Well, this is planning, and I realize when we're at council, we always do ask staff what the implications of a deferral are and what time and place mean for staff and any report coming back. So we are in a different position, I agree. And staff can't always have all the answers when the proponent is there. So we could actually debate the motion, and then you could call for deferral, because we haven't actually debated the motion yet. So would you like to withdraw the deferral and we will? Okay, so I think we have to call it as one item, that the deferral is to defer the entire application for a report back from staff. And it's been seconded by Councillor McLaren. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's defeated. So we will put the motion on the floor without amendment. And could I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Osanek. Comments, questions? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Recorded opposed?
Yes. Thank you. Our next is 556 Princess Street. And we have a recommendation from staff for approval. There have been a number of letters back and forth on this one with a comprehensive report from Ms. Diedrichsen. Do I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Osanek. Oh, and that we just, yes, we received a letter this evening from Ms. Zakos as well. That came just after the addendum, so I'll make sure that you've been able to refer to that. So the motion is on the floor. Are there questions, comments? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And opposed, Councillor Neal. And our final piece of business is 39 Churchill Street, zoning bylaw amendment. And there is a recommendation from staff. This is a severance. Could I have a motion? Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Osanek. Comments, questions? All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Councillor Neal opposed? Nope, so that's carried. That concludes the business portion. We have no motions, notices of motion, other business. We did receive quite a lot of correspondence. And the next meeting is January 19th at 6:30. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Turner, Councillor Osanek seconds. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried.